Hi, this is Becky from Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today I'm going to show you how to make a sculpted snowman cake decorated in all buttercream and holding an edible light up snowflake. First, I'm going to put down a non-slip mat, and I'm going to put my board right on that so it's easy to do. Now, if you saw my video on how to make the PVC pipe structure, I'm not going to repeat the whole process, but this is the same thing, only I just did the floor flange, which is that bottom piece, right in the middle instead of for two legs. With all the details of the structure, since I already did a full video on that, but let's get right to the cake. I have two 6-inch cakes, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make them a little curvy by trimming off the corners all the way around. And I only need to do it on the bottom, and then I have a second 6-inch cake and I'll do it on the bottom of that one as well, and then sandwich those two together, and that'll be the bottom roll of the snowman. Next, I'm going to take my handy dandy apple core, which I love using anytime I have a PVC pipe structure because it is the exact width of the hole, so it makes it really easy to just thread the cake right down the PVC pipe when you have that hole already in place. And then I'm going to use a large writing tip, or you can just cut a hole in a bag and just put some white buttercream in that, and I'm going to cover this whole bottom piece with the white buttercream, and then I'm going to stick the cake on that with the rounded side down, and then I'll put buttercream on that layer, and then the next layer that I put on the rounded side will be on top, so it'll just kind of look like one round ball on the bottom. More buttercream on that, and we're going to do the exact same thing with the 4-inch cakes, except for we want to make sure we trim the top 4-inch one so that it fits right level with this PVC pipe, so that when we put the slip on top and then the wooden board, that the wooden board will actually kind of look like it's part of the cake there. And the wooden board is also 4 inches, so it'll blend right in with our little 4-inch rounds here. So we're not going to have very much room, so we're going to make that 4-inch a lot thinner, just so that it'll fit right there. And then that cake board will have the illusion of being part of the cake here. Above it will be completely supported by the T-slip, which is why we made it just this high, so it's not going to squish the cakes underneath it, because the T-slip is supporting this board right here. And that's why we make our PVC pipe supports the way we do, which is really fun, because then you can put those slips wherever you want to support it at any height. The entire thing with buttercream, even the board, and then we're going to smooth it out with a flexible cake scraper. And I love using my flexible cake scrapers whenever I am smoothing out something that is rounded. You don't want to use a flat cake scraper because it's not going to do the job for you. You want to make sure you use the flexible one. You can kind of bend it and shape it the way you want. And then I go back and fill in any gaps with buttercream as I go through this. I use the Wilton 6-inch ball mold for the head, and I put buttercream in between, and then I'm going to use my apple core to make a hole in the middle and easily be able to thread that through the cake. I do it at a slight angle so that I have a little bit of the head peering forward. It just gave me a little more of a realistic snowman look, and I'm going to put buttercream down before I place it. Now make sure the part that is a little more forward is to the front of the cake, and then just carefully thread that down. That way he'll be looking forward. And then we're going to go ahead and pipe that buttercream on, and then we're going to smooth this out and pop it in the freezer, and then we can smooth it out again. In the front I kept it a nice thick layer of buttercream, and the rest I basically crumb coated because I knew I would be covering it with a hat. So now that I pop it back out of the freezer, I'm going to pipe on a little extra buttercream for some cheeks and smooth that out and put it back in the freezer just for a little longer, and then we can just smooth the entire snowman out. Using a bowl of hot water, I dip my hands, which are covered in gloves, into the hot water. I'm going to use this to smooth out my buttercream. Now, he's been in the freezer for about 10 minutes, so that makes the buttercream firm enough that I can now manipulate it with some nice hot water on my gloves. And you don't want him dripping, so I keep a paper towel on standby, and I kind of wipe and dip as I go. But it's a really great way of smoothing it out and getting those details that you want with buttercream. I just used a small writing tip and some black buttercream to type on the details of his mouth, and as you can kind of tell, I've drawn on with a toothpick ahead of time, so I knew exactly where I would be piping. And I find this very helpful, as I don't like to freehand things before I get it written with a toothpick. That way, if you don't like how it looks, you can kind of clean up the toothpick writing and then pipe again. I added a little bit of buttercream to the top, and then a cake ball or a cake pop or something like that can be for the top of his buttercream hat. And I used a star tip to pipe this. This is the you've seen in my practice piping sheet tutorial. This is the back and forth X that gives a really cool knitted look. So I used that on here, and then I also used a round tip in between 3 layers of the star tip to kind of tie it all together, and so that added a little bit of hint of gray in there, and I thought it was cute for the hat. Then I'm going to use the buttercream rope to tie this all together, which is basically just an S motion on its side, and then you just make the next S in the little gap that the other one has made. So it's just S, and then in that little gap you do another S, and that's how you tie it all together. And then for the scarf, I'm just gonna do the back and forth X that I did for the hat. We're just doing it sideways. So I used the 233 grass tip to pipe on the top of his little hat. That made it look fluffy, so that was a fun one. And then for his nose, I'm going to go ahead and use a wooden skewer that I cut down, and we're just going to stab it in at a slight downward angle. And then I'm going to use a large round tip and orange buttercream, and I'm just going to thread that skewer with my round tip and then apply pressure and pull back, and as the buttercream pipes out, it'll stick to the wooden skewer. Pour our pre-cooked ice malt into our silicone molds. These are Wilton snowflake molds, and then after we give them a minute to sit, we're going to pour them right back into the pitcher. to empty them out and make them hollow in the middle. After they're completely cooled, we're going to pop them right out of these molds. And then we're going to get out our torch, and we're just going to very lightly torch the edges. We're going to get out any of the extra bumps, and then we're going to stick these two pieces together. And by lightly heating all the edges, they'll be able to stick together. I'm going to break off a small portion on one of the snowflake ends. I'm going to slightly heat that end and bend it back and insert a smoothie straw. And then I'm going to use my torch again on the piece that I broke off so that it can stick right back where it was, essentially making us a little lollipop. And then I'm going to snip two little pieces on the end so that I can fit in a little balloon light. Then we can turn that light on when it's inserted in the cake, and it makes our snowflake light up. Now we essentially have a little snowflake light up lollipop here, so that's a lot of fun to play with, and you can do all kinds of things with this. But I do like my light up cakes. I also did the light up winter cottage cake, if you saw that one, and that was a lot of fun too. Now we're going to take a straw. This is a different straw. As you can see, it's a different color, and the reason why we're using a different straw first is because that's going to have a piece of cake in it as we push it through. So we're going to use that one to just push out that cake there and very gently push it through. Now I pushed it through at an angle because if you remember, we have our PVC pipe running down the middle of the cake, so we have to do it at an angle so that we miss that PVC pipe. Now I'm going to push that straw in with the one that we just prepared, but as I'm pushing it in, I'm going to make sure that I took out the balloon light before I do this part. We'll put the balloon light on just as soon as we get this all the way in, and that'll hold our little snowflake in place here. Simply reattach that balloon light to the back, and then we can turn him on. Now he's got to have some little arms, so I'm going to use some brown buttercream and a writing tip to make his little stick arms hold the snowflake in place so that he looks like he's bringing a little present to you. He's bringing a little magical light up snowflake to you, and I just thought this would be a really cute idea. We'll turn on our little guy, and there he is, our little snowman decorated all in buttercream with a light up edible snowflake. Thanks for watching today, and please subscribe to my channel.